Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory, and today is a special show because we are turning 2 years old. That's right, we've done over 100 episodes, and today we want to share with you all the top shows that you've liked. We want to thank you for listening. Thousands of people listen to our podcast every single week. So humbled, thankful for that. So here's our top shows that we've had over the last 2 years. Episode 56, I interviewed the CEO of Overjet, Dr. Wardah, and I asked her very directly, how much time are you actually going to save with your kind of technology being in dental offices? We actually use a project management software called ClickUp, and one of the things that they say is if you use our platform, we'll save you 1 day a week worth of time, which is amazing marketing, right? And I don't know if it saves a full day or a couple hours, but because we use it, it does save us a lot of time. How much time will this collectively save the doctor and the team? Do you know those numbers?
So the thing here is depending on like what you use. So when we talk about like the current Overjet software that is in use right now, a lot of it has to do with actually providing comprehensive diagnosis and comprehensive care, and then communicating with the patient more effectively, such that the patient accept the treatments that the dentist is recommending. So I think the way to think about it is, yes, you have some productivity increase or time not being spent on these, but the gain that you're getting from increase in treatment acceptance rates, increase in the patient trust, and being able to provide that comprehensive diagnosis is much more significant because that's the.
So like how much? Like what are we talking about? Do you have percentages on that?
So it really varies depending on practice to practice or where they stand. But we have had, cases where we've done like 100% increase at times, of where the baseline was. So it really does depend. And I think that's where, every practice can see where do they stand in their case acceptance rate and the complete diagnosis, etc. And there's an opportunity here to actually get to that, the complete capture of this value.
That's awesome. Now, you said one of the things you said there was that like most offices, the hygienist is capturing a lot of this information right now. And I know in the dental industry, the biggest shortage is actually in hygienists. Those are the hardest people to land right now. So how does Overjet make this the hygienist job simpler? And then does that mean I have to hire less people now?
So I think it makes, I would say, rather than less people, it's making it more efficient for everyone. So, for example, simple things, right? When hygienist collects, for example, X-rays, then they go and put the X-rays on that FMX template in the right orientation, and or if it is the X-ray has been taken upside down, they rotate it, and when the dentist comes in, they present that information to the dentist in such a way that they can consume it more effectively. In this case, the software does take care of that manual manipulations that are needed. If any filters need to be put in place, that can happen more automatically. All the annotations are already done. So when the dentist walks in, it helps in that communication as well, because a lot of times the hygienists are seeing stuff because of course they're diagnosing along with the dentist, but they sometimes do not feel confident enough to state what they're seeing, and when they see that their intuition is similar to what the software is showing as well, they're much more confident. And especially when it comes to procedures like scaling and root planing, which hygienists are very involved in the diagnosis piece of it as well, this helps quantify bone levels, for example, and really solidify that diagnosis in such a way that the hygienist is very confident, as well as then the dentist can make the right decision as well. And that way, I think it improves that communication between the hygienist and the dentist, as well as the communication between the hygienist and the patient as well, improving that patient experience, but also improving, as the patient experience improves, improving the hygienist experience as well. So I would say here, the practices which are utilizing overjet software, one of the key things that comes to our to us as a feedback is the fact that hygienists are one of the biggest champions of this software as well, but also they're more excited about their jobs. They're more excited about what they're
because they
doing.
get to do the stuff they actually signed up to do. Because I'll give you a good example of this. Like in marketing, we always say, hey, you got to get more Google reviews. And people go, okay. And they go to the front desk person, or they go to the hygienist, or they go to somebody in the office, and they say, you need to sign up more Google reviews. And no one ever wants to do it because it's not part of our job, right? Like no one got into dentistry so they can ask for Google reviews. So no one's ever excited to do it. And I feel like a lot of like the hygienist job and even some of the dentist job, that's not really what they signed up to do. And it's a lot of busy work that if you could take off their plate, it allows them to elevate and do the things they really love to do all day long. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And be more confident in their everyday, which helps them, be more fulfilled in their jobs as well.
That's awesome. I love that. I love it when technology is able to free people up to do the things that they love to do. In episode 58, I interview my friend Perrin, who is the founder of Polaris, and he's sharing the backside of his events and how he brings impact to dental offices just like yours. What do you think would be like the main takeaway that people are going to get from this conference?
Yeah.
Like if I'm thinking about going to something like this, what's the big takeaway that I get?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of ways to approach a conference like this. And the first thing is we're going to cover such a wide variety of subject matter that you should expect to go into it with a handful of questions in your mind. The things that you don't know, and you're going to get those questions answered. That being said, the presenters, much like yourself, are people we hand selected. So they're truly industry experts, and they're people who don't mind going deep in terms of the subject matter and sharing their knowledge at a very granular level. So the second thing is for an attendee that has questions going in, those are questions they know they have or mistakes they know they've made. They're going to learn a heck of a lot in that 2 day session that's going to be things that never occurred to them, that they probably wouldn't have found out until they stepped on the landmine. So, this is a conference that's really fundamentals, it's cornerstones of group practices, it's different ways to think about scaling, and it's a different mindset than building or owning your first or second practice for sure. And I like to think that you're going to walk away. Every presenter, we're asking to present whatever their subject matter is, but we're also asking them to present it from a standpoint at the end of saying, okay, whatever I just shared with you, here are 3 things you got to think about when you get back home. Here are 3 things you got to address. Here are 3 things you got to dig into and find the answer to if you're going to use what I shared with you to the best of your ability. And so I think those, the when Monday comes thing is what really bothers me about other conferences. If you attend other group practice conferences, I like to say it's death by panel or death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And hey, the people on the panel might have built a 100 location DSO, and they may talk about their journey, but for our audience, they sit there and scratch their head like, wow, that's really cool to be in the same auditorium with them, but what do I do with it?
Yeah.
Like, how do I apply it? And if there's nothing to apply, then why were you there? Ours is all going to be about application. So I promise you'll get your bang for the buck.
On episode 59, I interview Mark Costas, the one, the only, and he breaks down his top KPIs for his dental offices. And some of them are not going to be what you think they are, and how he tracks them is pretty unique. What's some of the main KPIs that you looked at every day? And EBITDA is a big one, and overhead, of course. But then you said leadership score, systemization score, and culture score. Could you break those 3 down for me?
Yeah, sure. So within our organization, we've developed a belt system, right? So you can be a white belt. Everybody kind of understands what belts look like and what a black belt is. Whether or not you've ever put a gi on or put boxing gloves on, you kind of understand the belt system in martial arts. Everybody kind of understands that. So we came up with this, what we call, belt classification. So you can come in as a white belt, and then the whole model is that you're trying to get to black belt level. You come in as a white belt, a blue belt, a brown belt, or a black belt. Okay. And those classifications are based on several different KPIs, and you mentioned them. The first one is overhead and EBITDA. So what is your profitability? A lot of people, off the bat, if you ask what their profitability is, they'll give you their production number or their collections number. I say that's your revenue. That's good. Now subtract all of your expenses and tell me what your overhead is. And you know, a lot of people just haven't done just that very, very basic math. What is your EBITDA? What's your overhead? So that's the first classification. Then we go into leadership score. How effective are you as a leader? So we have a series of different self-assessments. When people come into our organization, they're asked to do a battery of assessments, and we ask some pretty detailed questions. They come up with a leadership score, and then there's also a cultural assessment. That's all based on their core values that they've put together. How effective is each of your team members in relation to these core values? So if your core value is open and honest communication, continual growth, whatever, you could look at each individual person during their monthly performance reviews and say, how much do you embody this particular core value? A 0 out of 5. And if they're an awesome communicator, they're the glue that holds the whole team together, they would get a 5. If they're the gossip and they're the pot stirrer, they would get a 1 or a 0. And then you add up all of those per person, then you take an average of that for the entire office. That's what we would call your cultural score. And systemization score is the same. We have 6 pillars to systemization in a dental practice. How well do you embody each of these 6 pillars? And that is like a 14-page document that they fill out. They give themselves a score. When you look at all of those, all of the assessment scores need to have an 80% or greater to be a black belt. And they have to have an overhead, excluding doctor's salary, that's below 50%. You do all of that, you get a black belt status. And then anything less than that is according to the categories below that. Interestingly enough, Gary, when we started this out, we only had one metric, and that was get your overhead to 60%.
Yeah.
And there was so few sophisticated business owners that were in our organization at the time. That's what we spent 100% of our time doing. Mm-hmm. Get your overhead to 60%, and the rest of it will figure itself out.
That can cause some major drama, though, right? Because you end up doing some pretty crazy things to get to your number.
Right. And then it's like, what do we focus on? Are we focusing on increasing production? Are we focusing on variable expenses, fixed expenses? What are we doing here? So we've gotten quite a bit more sophisticated over the years as far as how we work with practices. We've been doing this for almost 11 years now. So our process is pretty fine-tuned at this point.
On episode number 75, I interview my good friend Josey from the DEO, and she does an amazing job of breaking down how she creates a safe environment for people on her team so they can thrive, and teaches other people how to do the same also. So one of the things you said is that people are kind of lying a little bit about how well they're doing, or there's a very much that I call it like Instagram life, where you're kind of taking the best picture possible and you're putting it up, right? You don't put the ones where your kids are fighting, or the ones where you're not getting along with your spouse, or those. We don't post those kind of pictures usually on Instagram. So it's kind of that Instagram life is seeping through into the dental world. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that people are struggling and not really where they're at? What's the biggest culprit that's holding people back there?
I think it's just that they feel ashamed or they feel guilty. And unfortunately, many of us just think like, I'm the only one that doesn't have it figured out. And so they haven't found this community where they can be really open and safe. One of the things that I've loved about being part of the DEO is we have mastermind calls, we have group coaching calls, we have events. And when we're together, we try really hard to just make it a very, very safe place. And so like when I taught a webinar a couple months ago on levers of profitability, I talked about the times when we almost didn't make payroll. I talked about the times when we locked ourselves into a room and came up with plan C that was like, we would do this, this, and this, but don't do it. Don't open this envelope until this happens. And, we file it away.
Yep.
So, I was on a call with a couple last week, and she's the dentist, he's the business person, and they're working through some things, and they were being introduced to our program and what we do. And I just said, you know what? It's okay. They were worried about this extra practice. And I said, it's okay if it's just started and you're not like in the green yet, or you're not break even. That's very normal. And for them to just hear that they were not an utter failure was a big deal. So I think that part of it is we have to find those communities where we can be safe. We had a call last month. We did this series on the recession. And one of them was about If you have to lay people off, it was flexible staffing models. And we had Emmett, who everybody just loves and adores and looks up to, got in front of all of our members and was very open about what Community Dental Partners has been through the last year and the struggles that he's had and what it's, the weight on his shoulders. So I think that people don't know when is a safe place for me to share these things. Where can I find the community? And then can I trust the community that if I share with them, I'm struggling, it's not going to be used against me. So it's just not a normal thing for people to feel, or not a natural thing for people to know.
I have found, 100%. And I've leaned into that really heavily because I personally, I used to be very, very scared. I used to think that as a CEO, that it was my job to have all the answers and that I had to have everything buttoned up. And so I would pretend like I did. And it's the fake it till you make it mindset. And I don't know if all entrepreneurs are that way, but I'm assuming that a lot of people starting businesses kind of start there. Like, I have to have all the answers. And what I learned is not only do I not have all the answers, I don't have the vast majority of the answers. And people can't relate to me if I pretend like I do. And so I just started just telling everybody what I don't know and where I failed. And then I started posting it on social media. And that's when things started to really open up for me to realize, oh, you don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And it makes people much more relatable. And you actually, this is the biggest thing that I didn't realize it would happen. That's when I actually had people showing up and wanting to help me. So people would come and go, oh, you're struggling with that? I actually do have the answers. I do have the expertise with that, including my team. And that's been the most amazing thing to me. And I actually learned it in COVID because during COVID, we lost 75% of our revenue overnight, gone. And we didn't lay anybody off. We took out a bunch of loans. And I just showed the team every week, hey, here's where we're at. And this is how much money we have. Here's our runway. Hopefully the economy opens back up. If not, we're all in trouble. We're all going to be without a job. And at that time, I had the bravery to do that because there was nowhere else hiring, right? It wasn't like people were going to leave. I just wanted to be as honest as possible because I didn't really have the situation made me be that way. But when I saw how it brought us all together, I instantly knew this is how I need to operate all the time. I just need to be honest with people, be transparent, be vulnerable, tell them I don't have the answers. And that's when we really grew as a company. So I can really relate to that. So on that same vein of that thought, I'm just thinking through my head, what would the audience want to hear from this? Where are the practices getting stuck? Where is the area that you just go over and over and over again? That's where they're stuck. These are the common places the log jams happen.
Yes. So I do want to come back to this idea of transparency and vulnerability, but to answer your question, hey, if my practice is struggling, what are the fundamentals? Maybe I'm not even sure. I can't put my finger on what the fundamentals are. For us, it comes down to 3 systems. Now, we could go super deep into any one of these. Now, number 1 is something that you talk about all the time, and it's patient experience or patient journey. So what we've had people do is we have them think about, a lot of people just overcomplicate systems and process, and we want to simplify this as much as possible. So we have created where we were hey, let's think about your patient experience. Let's think about it in a chronological. First, you have to attract them, then you convert them, then you connect with them. You diagnose, you treat, you whatever. And so creating first the patient experience, and then what we do is for each of those chronological, those major milestones along the way, what we do is say, what does ideal look like? What is our system or our process? And how would we measure this? That's where a lot of people get stuck is they don't have it measured. So within patient journey, we have a metric for each one of these kind of chronological steps. So if we're struggling in one, we can go back to the step before to say, okay, are we struggling with actually converting them on the phone, right? Which is an easy marketing one. If we can get conversion up, we'll see more patients. And then how are we doing with diagnosis? I mean, it's really like what you guys were talking about with your ring and patient journey and all of those things. So step 1 is patient journey. That's one system. Now, there's a lot of things that support that and the ability to execute on that. But that's number 1. Number 2 is healthy business systems. And so it's looking at your over-the-counter collections. It's looking at your insurance processing. It's making sure that we are collecting as much as possible, and then looking at fees and different things like that, but systems within. And then the third one is team engagement. And so some very basics on team engagement. So that's having clear KPIs for every team member, having a great morning huddle, right, to make sure that we're maximizing what we're doing in every patient interaction. We would, something that I think worked really well for us at Carolina's Dentists, we grew very rapidly, is we focused on today and tomorrow. How can we maximize today and tomorrow with every patient interaction? And so we built some of that into the team engagement. But again, team engagement is clear communication, it's KPIs by position, and it's a good morning huddle amongst a couple of things. So within each of those three systems, obviously you can go super deep. But again, if you have great patient experience, that's going to, that's your revenue generator, that's production. If you have great, healthy business systems, that's your collections process. And then the third one is your team engaged? A lot of people will say to me, Josey, I have a great culture. But if you are not profitable and your team is not performing, you don't have a great culture.
Okay,
you just really like the people that you work with.
In episode number 77, I interview Brett from Brightworth, who's an amazing human being, someone I love to catch up with, who we're constantly meeting and talking. But this time we are chatting on a podcast live about some of the things you need to understand about marketing and KPIs to make sure that you're driving financial health. But what happens when you start sending marketing patients in, they don't trust you. The doctors call them shopping patients. We don't want the shopping patients. All patients are shopping patients. It's just how far down in the funnel, the trust funnel they are. And so if you're getting these marketing patients, they have money, they have a dental need, and you're using that old system, and the average dental unanswered rate right now is 35%. 35% of calls go unanswered during normal business hours at dental offices. That's the average. The bad offices, the ones that don't market, things like that, like they don't, when I say bad, they're even worse than that. They're at the 40, 50%. And it doesn't matter because again, if a patient referral was referred there, you're gonna answer the phone. They're gonna call back. Like it doesn't matter if you answer the phone the first time. So
but if it's inbound.
Yeah, exactly. So my recommendation is first, find, and I work with a bunch of people that do this, you need to operationally have a vision of what you want to do, what you were talking about earlier, like where are you trying to go? If you're just trying to save your bacon and throw marketing at the wall, my recommendation is it's too late. Like you've sat on the sideline too long. You don't just go to the marketing. Go to the operations first. Get a clear vision of where you're trying to go. Are you trying to add more practices? Are you trying just to grow this practice? And then where are you operationally weak? And have an honest evaluation of that. And then once you have a clear understanding of that, then add marketing on top of that. And the reason I say this, because I sell marketing, right? So the reason I say this is you're just setting yourself up for failure. Like if you put marketing on top of broken operations, you'll never be successful.
So let me ask you this. As part of your client qualification or prospect qualification and onboarding process, describe for me how you're analyzing those pieces. If someone comes and says, hey, Gary, I'd like your help with marketing, I presume you're not jumping straight to the marketing.
No, we walk. No, exactly. So first thing we do is we say, okay, well, what does success look like for you? So, we're at 50 new patients. We want to get to 100. Great. What kind of patients do you want? Clinically, like what kind of patients do you want? Just bread and butter. Okay, so you want some GP patients. You're looking for what's your avatar look like? What's your average unanswered call rate? What's your phone conversion rate? What's your average time to appointment? What's your available appointment blocks look like? What's your...
How many people can answer those questions?
Some people can answer some of them. But that tells us where they're broken, right? So everybody's broken somewhere. Every business is broken somewhere at some level because you're always working on it. So if you're hearing this and you're like, why is Gary beating me up so bad? Every business is broken at some level, right? It's just where is it broken? And so, but I will say it's a big jump to go from no marketing to marketing. That's a big jump. You have to actually start a little bit back before that. So then at that point, that's when we go, you know what, we don't think you're not going to be able to be successful with what we have for you unless you're willing to do A, B, and C. And if they're like, and I meet a lot of dentists, they're like, I'm not willing to have my front desk trained. I'm not willing to make my front desk do this, that, or the other. I'm not willing to open up more appointments on my schedule, or I'm not willing to hire another hygienist to be able to get these hygiene patients in, which I get. Like that is a business owner's choice and they're right. But it's not as simple as just let's throw marketing at it to fix it. Marketing is not a silver bullet. It can be a silver bullet, but only if you have really clean operations. When you have great operations, then marketing's the best thing in the world. But when you have broken operations, all it does is exaggerates the problems that you already have.
So if I'm hearing what you're saying, it almost sounds like if you're interested in enhancing your marketing activities, perhaps a first step is to evaluate your current operations to almost assess whether you're a good candidate. And as a business owner, will this investment of funds in marketing operations or marketing activities be fruitful based on our operations, or do we need to get the engine fixed first before we take it out to learn how to drive the course?
Now a lot of doctors have marketed before, and a lot of them have had mixed feelings about it, right? Which I understand.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. Number one, it's either the marketing company they're working with doesn't know what they're doing, or they're not dental specific, or they don't know how to drill down operationally to get the kind of clinical patients. They don't know the difference between a prophy patient and an Invisalign patient, as an example. Like, that's a problem. That's like there's nuances there. Then from there, it's okay, let's assume that the marketing that they do have does work. They do know what they're doing. Then you have these pitfalls. I call it the black hole of marketing. So if you're spending, I'm just going to use round numbers. If you're spending $10,000 on marketing, $3,500 goes down the drain on unanswered calls. That's the average. And then from there, the average conversion on the phone for marketing leads, this is average. And keep in mind, this is average for people who track it. So this is the people who don't track it is probably worse. 50% is the average conversion rate. So if you get $10,000, $3,500 goes down the drain. So we're at $6,500, and then 50% of that, so about $3,000. We're at about $3,000 down the drain before they even get to the office.
Sounds like it puts a lot of pressure on the effectiveness of your marketing spend, which is probably why most people have mixed results.
It's 100% why. That's why. And a lot of people hear this and they're like, "Are you just defending marketing companies across the world?" Yeah. No, but even the best marketing is still a failure with those numbers. On episode number 62, I got the opportunity to interview Ann Duffy. Now, if you don't know Ann, she is an amazing human being, just always positive and full of energy. And she shared how she got to buy her business for pennies on the dollar, and how that happened is going to be mind-blowing to you once you learn. Okay, hold on. This is awesome. This is the stuff I love right here. Okay, so someone else started a business. They were like, dental's boring, right? Which I understand. Yeah. I've actually worked with people who that actually quit because they were like, dental's too boring. And then you bought it from them, but it was only print back then. So it wasn't digital at all. And how much did you buy it for? Can you say?
Really? You want me to tell you? He owed me $1,500. He owed me $1,500, and he just didn't pay it. And he gave it to me.
That's so cool. That is so awesome. That is so cool. Okay, I'm glad I asked that question. And then
I've never told anybody that, Gary. I've never.
No, that's huge. No, that's huge. Yeah. I love. This is like the entrepreneur side of me that I'm just like fascinated.
Yeah.
So now you take this $1,500 thing that basically someone's just throwing away, and now you're turning it into a business. So walk me through. So it's a print publication when you first started. Mm-hmm. What year was that roughly?
I think it was 1998. I met him on a trade show floor. I was in a networking. I'm a hygienist. I always had a side gig. So I was in OxyFresh, and I built the largest team of female dental professionals in the company, and met him on a trade show floor. And interestingly enough, I had no sales background. And so, because my husband's in sales and all that kind of stuff. So I think through our cocktail hour every night, I learned a little bit. And he had a professional salesperson that was supposedly selling ads, and he never sold anything. I come on board, we launched, we made a lot of money actually in the beginning, just right out of the chute. And again, I just kind of fell into it. I didn't want it to die because I really had a passion for the dental entrepreneur, the private practitioners, because I have 7 state boards. I moved around a lot with my husband's company, and always took a job with a private practitioner. So I had a love for the business side and how some work and some don't. So that was number one. And yeah, it was just print twice a year. Again, business beyond the classroom. And as we all know, and still dental schools don't have a business, curriculum.
Yeah.
They don't have time
Yep.
for it. And so we were
Yep.
generic, and we just slipped in there and gave them how do you buy a practice? How do you be a leader? How do you hire and fire? So yeah, that's how it all started. And I actually, you'll love this. I really didn't want to buy it because I was doing really well in OxyFresh and working at 3 kids. We were talking about raisin and all that. But my friend said, "Oh, my husband will sell ads, and all you have to do is get the content." So I knew a lot of people from 3 years into the business through all the different side gigs I had. And so I said, "Okay, great." Well, her husband never sold one ad. And so then I did everything. I brought in the authors. Then I started to know all the different women and men in dentistry through writing for us, through the marketing companies, in that kind of in that kind of arena. And then got involved with the speakers and consultants because they were our writers. And just all came together, and we've grown it. We grew it over the years.
And now it's
a real
digital,
love of
right?
mine.
Now it's
Oh
more
yeah,
digital
it's all
than-
digital.
Okay.
And we rebranded, honestly. You're funny how you said that earlier, like dentistry can be boring. Well, I was really getting bored with how to get out of dental school and the business 101, right? Because, you can Google that now.
In episode number 79, I got the opportunity to interview one of the best dental recruiters out there, Ron Brush, and we broke down how recruiting has turned into quite the art form in the dental industry. And you're going to want to hear this analogy because it's going to hit home for you. So recruiting in dental is almost becoming like recruiting in the NBA. So in the NBA, you have to not only recruit the talent, can you shoot a jump shot? Can you pass the ball? Can you play defense? But what's your work ethic going to be like too? Right. And am I going to get a LeBron James? Or am I going to get an Anthony Bennett?
Well, in that same vein, Gary, I think, hand skills and clinical skill sets during the interview process, you don't know, unless you see them cut into a tooth, unless you see them actually chairside, you have no idea what capabilities these guys have. And to be honest with you, some of the greatest, most productive doctors, I've hired over 1,100 doctors in 46 states. And some of the most productive doctors graduated last in their class, as opposed to the graduating, first in their class. You never know from an academic perspective versus hand skill perspective. It doesn't translate 100% of the time, right? And most of the interview process at the general DSO is this. You talk to a recruiter, then you talk to either a regional or an owner, whoever the owner is. You go visit the practice, then they send you a contract. There's no hands-on. They have no idea what kind of dentist you are. You know what I mean? So whenever I talk to my clients, I'm always recommending, especially private practice guys, a working interview. Working interviews are the best way to figure out whether a candidate can actually cut into a tooth and be comfortable doing it and can interact with your team and do all that other stuff you need to do as a dentist. You know what I mean?
So let's talk. Yeah, totally. So let's talk through that. So what are some of the horror stories that you're seeing out there just in your career? You've shared some of them with me already, but just where people are just getting recruiting wrong and it's causing them to strike out and it's costing them a lot of money. And then on the back end of that, what are we doing? What are you doing to help people get it right?
That's a great question. I feel like it's just part of the business that dentists just aren't familiar with. Do you know what I mean? So I had one particular private practice client, pretty successful. He had 3 or 4 practices. He was an implant guy. He was driving, multiple millions of dollars of revenue every year. And the way that he hired associates was literally it was adamant that he had to take them out, have a glass of scotch with them, have a handshake, and then they would literally start the next week. And then in the same vein, he would be like, but I'm going through 6 associates a year at this one practice. And I'm like, Doc, you have no idea. You're basically taking them out on a date. You're shaking a hand.
Yeah, and then you're marrying them.
You're giving them a job.
Yeah.
And you're putting them in front of your patients. You're doing a disservice to everybody involved here, To the flip side of that, though, I will say what I've seen a lot of the private practice guys do is where they're tripped up, not only in the selection process, because they may spend 10 or 15 minutes. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know how to interact with a candidate in any way, shape, or form, right? They're not formally trained in interviewing. and then they give them a contract written by an attorney who knows nothing about dentistry.
I've seen that too. In episode number 80, I got the opportunity to interview Jonathan Moffat, who has been in the dental industry for a long time, and he's going to give you a peek behind the scenes of what it's like to run a DSO and how marketing impacts practices. Henry Ford said cutting your marketing budget to save money is like taking off your watch to stop time.
I like that. I haven't heard that. I like it.
Yeah. So I'm really big on, if it were this year, because we're going into, a recession, the economy's slowing down, who knows how big or small it'll be. But we told our team, we're doubling down on everything. We're doing double. We started 2 new podcasts. We're speaking at more events. We're having more last year we had our first conference. This year we're having 3. Like, we're doubling, tripling everything, because that's when you double down, is when people are scared. That's the best time to invest. You're going to get the biggest return. So I'm right there with you. So now that you sold your practice, you probably made a lot of money. Why didn't you go back into doing more practices? Was there a reason for that? Was there a method to going straight to a line? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, so there's this thing called a non-compete. So when you sell, you sign a non-compete, right? That says you're not going to go do exactly what you suggested, right? But the reality is, for me, Aligned Advisors was still going. It wasn't like we sold our practice last year and then I started Aligned Advisors. Aligned Advisors has been going since 2009, 2010, I think is when we started. So this was something that I had done, to help out a friend and a client of mine. 2 was to have experience, right? We got a lot of great experience, firsthand, hands-on experience, which ultimately ends up helping us become better advisors and to advise our clients. So one of the conversations we end up having a lot with clients is one of the common goals. It's actually almost the number one goal for almost all of our clients, is to be able to step away from the chair, right? And in whatever capacity or whatever that looks like to them, whether it's completely stopping dentistry, whether it's adding more locations, whether it's bringing locations into their existing location and creating a bigger, larger single location group with multiple doctors that they then move out of the chair clinically to then supervise and become more of a mentor. Whatever that looks like to them, it's the number one goal that almost every dentist we talk to has.
In episode 87, we break down why sales is so hard in dentistry and a different way to think about how dental offices should think through the sales process. Nobody likes the word sales in the dental industry, right? So everybody removes that. So you have marketing and then you have operations. And so what happens is people will either get really good at marketing, but they're horrible at their operations. The marketing patients never make it to the office. Or they're amazing at operations, but they can't get more new patients. They can't grow the way that they want. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that you remove sales from it. Like, your front desk is actually your lowest paid person probably in your office, and they're your bottleneck at your front desk. And then that's the beginning, that's the tip of your patient journey. And once you help me realize that okay, this is, if we don't get clear on this, you can't have these 2 things siloed, operations and marketing. You have to have it all tied together. And because you don't have a sales department, you have to really dive into the weeds with them and help them lay out a plan. And I love the way that you laid out the patient journey at our boot camp and really help people visualize how the patient should be flowing through the offices.
Gary, I think we're going to look at here, right now, there's a lot of buzz about the buy-in decision, right? What does that look like right now? And what I want us to bring together is, a couple of tracks. We want to look at awareness, how you developed awareness, how do they do their research from the patient's end to the team end, what's a consideration to spend money at your practice. And if you're spending money at the practice, you're going to have free cash flow to grow. So, and then put it together is, how do you make the patients move forward on the operations side and also on the marketing side. And, I also think, which is really important that people don't really talk about, is the campaigns that are running in your offices. What do they look like operationally? And what do they look like on the marketing side? So I'm excited about it because I don't think there's a lot of conversation about that right now. And I think there needs to be. It's a big, big KPI with and looking at it with, what's going to happen at Dykema. I mean, we're all there to learn how to scale, right? We're all there to learn how to grow. But it comes back to, what's your free cash flow looking like? And it starts with what you and I are going to be talking about at a higher level.
In episode 93, I got the opportunity to interview the one, the only Brian from Dykema, and he broke down the behind the scenes of his best in the industry event, Dykema. And if you've never been, it's like the best event in the whole world. And he shares how he selects his speakers for this event. You are not an event person. This is not something that you built to say, hey, I'm going to make all this money off an event.
Nope.
You literally take every single penny, dump it back into the event. And then you're not being sold the whole time either. We've both been to events where the whole time it's just a sales show.
You cannot buy your way onto this stage, Gary. I'm so glad you mentioned that. You mentioned a couple things I want to talk about, but the first one, let me just get this out there. You can't buy your way onto this stage. Now, to be clear, there are a few people on stage that have also sponsored the event, but that has nothing to do with it. You have to have value-added content to get on the stage, and there are plenty of people on the stage. In fact, the majority that didn't give any money, they have a value-added content, and for that reason, they're on the stage. Then there are some people that are sponsors and also on the stage, but that just means that in addition to sponsoring, they have a really good value-added content that we wanted on stage, but you can't buy your way. I get phone call after phone call because this has turned into the event of the year. We're expecting over 2,000 people this year. It's the largest event I know of in the DSO industry. I get phone calls. How do I get on stage? I'll give you 50 grand or 100 grand. You just can't do it. I mean, we're really, really proud of the fact that the stage is not for sale. If you have a value-added content that we think would be really timely and valuable, you get on our stage. If you don't, you can't buy your way onto it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So all the events that I've put together now, I've taken that mindset of, no, what's going to bring the most value? And then also, how do we just keep dumping back into the event? And I know that's something that you've worked really hard on with your team.
Yeah, it is. We don't make typically really any money on the event. I mean, every now and then, we might do, Laura, my event coordinator, does such a good job. We clear a little bit of money or something, but this is not a money-making event. I am happy if we break even because what we're trying to do is, we're a law firm and we're very upfront about that. We'd love people to have a great time at the event, know who Dykema is. And, if people then decide they want to hire Dykema because they've got, things that they need in the dental industry, that's wonderful. But because we're a law firm and we're not a professional event company, we really don't have to, nor do we want to make money off this thing. We want everybody to have a great time. So, when a drone show costs $110,000, we write the check. When you got to get these rock bands that come play, and I don't even know, but it was a large contract, a large check, we wrote that check. When Andre Agassi wants to come, we're happy for him to come, and the food and the accommodations and everything, it's just a step above because we're not looking for a profit out of any of this. We want everybody to have a great time.
That's amazing. Now let's talk about some of the boot camps that you're doing the day before, the shops that you're doing the day before, because it's one thing to come to an event and hear people speak and be motivated and network, and I think that's what you guys are really the best at. But now you're adding on top of that, being the best at that already, you're adding all these tactical boot camps where you're going to actually come and learn a skill the day before the event. So let's talk through some of those and kind of your mindset of why you're putting those in and how those work.
Yeah, well, we'll start with yours. You're so gracious to have me on your show here, so we might as well start with yours. But there's others. We're going to go through all of them. But, Gary, you and D. Fischer are putting on this, best-in-class operations workshop as to how to scale up your organization. And I'm really, really excited. I mean, you have a huge following. D. Fischer has an incredibly huge following. Yeah. The folks in your universe and network are just fanatical in their praise for you guys. And I couldn't think of two better folks in the industry to collaborate on sort of like a best in class scaling up your organization. And, I know D has started to post, and you may have posted on this about the agenda, but it's incredible.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this special show, and we'll see you on the next episode.